Bill, there's two ways of looking at this. When President Trump kept saying 2 weeks, 2 weeks, that was a great sleight of hand deception so that our forces had the most element of surprise. The other way to look at it is that when the Iranians said Israel must stop their bombing before we will talk, President Trump once again felt sort of taken advantage of. And I'm sure you watched his remarks. I sensed a sense of a feeling of anger in him and sort of rage at the Iranians that I've not really seen him ever display.
Okay, simple man analysis, because I'm a simple man. I think the president is angry that he had to do it because he clearly did not want to inject American military power onto Iran. He can't understand why that nation continued to defy the world and pursue nuclear weapons. So, yeah, he's teed off that we had to do it. But let's walk through this because I don't want to do speculation. You got a million guests who can do that. I'm a fact-based guy. But you did, if I say something you disagree with, Leland, you jump right in, okay? So the world is much better off now that the nuclear ambitions of the mullahs has been diminished. I don't think there's any question about that. The world is a better place, a safer place. Anybody who would disagree with that isn't really a rational person.
Agreed.
Secondly, okay, the options that the world had to convince the mullahs to stop their madness were almost zero at this point because Tehran knew they could see every day Israel attacking them, and Israel wasn't going to stop. And then they could see President Trump saying, you better knock it off or you're going to get hit, and they still did it. So we're not dealing with rational people here at all. They could have signed a peace agreement or whatever.
You said if I disagreed with you, let me jump in for a second. And we're having some audio issues because I'm now hearing myself back in my ear and lost you for a little while. So we're going to get that sorted out. But this is my question. You said we have diminished the mullahs' nuclear ambitions. Great. What if we don't know everything that the mullahs had in terms of their nuclear program? I think the Israelis have some of the best intelligence in the world. They thought the Iranians were trying to move forward with a weapon. But is there not a fear that when people like the mullahs do something so irrational, like defy the most powerful military in the world and flip President Trump the bird and say, nah, go ahead and bomb Fordo, that they might have an ace up their sleeve?
That's speculation. That's weakness. You don't run foreign policy on, well, maybe this could happen, or maybe they'll get mad, or maybe there'll be a terror attack. You can't do that.
Okay.
The obligation of the President of the United States, the first obligation, is to protect Americans. First obligation. If there is a regime in the world that says death to America 10,000 times and has launched terror attacks throughout the Middle East on American forces, and then you learn that these people are close to getting a nuclear weapon, and you don't do anything? Unspeakable.
Bill, a week ago, you and I were on air, and I came on air at 9 p.m. last Monday and said it's time to bomb Iran. So you're not getting any arguments from me on this.
The argument is, why did he do it now?
Right. Well, that's a question. That's not an argument. Let me ask you a question going forward. How does this end? President Trump, I listened to him very carefully. I know you did too. He said that the bully of the Middle East must choose peace now. But what does that mean? Does that mean that the mullahs just say, OK, we're done? Does that mean President Trump's demanding unconditional surrender and that the mullahs have to leave and go into exile? Does that mean that we think that the Iranians are just going to suddenly say, oh, never mind? I'm trying to figure out, based on what the president said, how he views this ending.
All you can do is go by what President Trump has said in the past. And that is that the mullahs can keep their positions if they allow inspections and if they stop enriching uranium. Now, their capacity to enrich uranium, I don't know what the percentage is now, but it's way down after tonight. Okay? And I assume that the mullahs will sign a peace agreement saying UN weapons inspectors, and if I were Trump, I'd put U.S. too, are going to be able to come in and look at whatever they want to look at. I would assume that's going to happen. Look, I can tell you with certainty on Trump's speech, it was written for him, but he went over it. I can tell you with certainty he was issuing another warning to the mullahs.
This was a speech to the mullahs. This wasn't a speech to America.
That's correct, because he didn't fill in any blanks about why I did it
I got 60 seconds later. That's tomorrow. There's a press conference at a.m. Real quick, though. Why do you think he went through all the bad acts of Iran? He laid out their sponsor of terrorism, their killing of Americans. There was this recitation, and he hasn't done that before, of sort of the evilness of Iran.
Because he has to justify what he did, and he has to get the American people on his side. Do you realize that there was a nitwit in Congress named Sean Gaston from Illinois who within minutes called for Trump's impeachment?
So did AOC.
Well, I don't even think that woman, I think that's a cartoon. That's not really a person, okay? But this Gaston, I mean, you're looking at this person, all right, if you don't believe he should have done it, you wait. You don't do that 10 minutes after a military action when we still have people in the air.
Yeah, John Fetterman, the flip side of that, just put out a statement or a tweet, if you will, with a bunch of American flags. Bill, always great having you. I know you're up late. I suspect there's going to be a new message of the day tomorrow on BillO'Reilly.com or a new column.
A full-blown column on BillO'Reilly.com within the hour on this. Thanks for having me, Leland.
Send it to me as well. Thanks, Bill.